96.1 FM, streaming across the planet Earth and beyond, including on YouTube now. You know us better as the Big X. Mike Rutherford and Roman Kelly with you on a Wednesday edition of the show, getting closer and closer and closer, a mere 48 and a half hours away from the Louisville baseball team taking on Miami in Game 1 of the Super Regional. The ticket sales, very quickly, the seats for both Friday and Saturday were all filled up. The resale value is out of this world. I think we're expecting a gigantic scene at Jim Patterson coming up in a couple of days. Talk more about that at 3 o'clock today. We'll have Sean Malth, the voice of Louisville baseball, on to talk about not just Louisville baseball. He casually dropped the other day that he's in a movie. And he's like, I don't like talking about it that much. I was like, well, if I get you on the radio soon, I'm going to ask about the movie appearance. So we'll do that today. We'll have a bunch of notes in the world of sports, including some U of L athletic stuff. I thought there was a very interesting story today in the Courier-Journal from Peyton Titus about the funding for U of L baseball. There's been a lot of talk in recent years about the facility upgrades that haven't happened, where that money's gone, and we have some clarity on that. And I think it develops produces the type of conversation that we're going to have in this new NIL era. And I think it's a little bit of insight into debates that are happening in athletic programs across the country. We've got a crazy softball story to get to. We've got crazy UNC basketball spending to get to. A little bit of extra basketball recruiting nuggets to get to. And, of course, you guys on the Big X text line at 502-414-1450. Keeping us entertained for the next 3 hours, as you always do. Send in those thoughts, those questions, those comments, those concerns. Whatever you've got, we'll take them for the next 3 hours. Before we get to any of it, though, we say hi to our guy, Roman Kelly. Give him a follow on Twitter, at RomyBean. He's producing the hell out of the show, as always. You just heard him on with the Running with Roman. You'll hear him again from 5:30 to 6. Roman, how are you, buddy?
Doing great. Doing great, Mike. In here training. Got Matthew Childress in here, the new WXVW producer.
Finally got to meet Matthew.
/ XVW social media liaison. He's going to be helping learn how to do everything that I know how to do, basically. So whenever anything's needed, whenever we've got to do remote stuff, he's going to be helping us out and knowing how to produce the bleep out of the show like me.
You can say hell.
I don't like to say that.
You don't like to say hell?
It's not a radio word, Mike.
It's absolutely a radio word. I just said it 3 times in the first 3 minutes of the show.
It just doesn't make me feel comfortable.
The hell are you thinking? Just say it. Now I want you to say it. Just say it.
I'll say it today. Is that fair? Before
say it right now.
Oh, jeez. What the hell are you making me say it for, Mike?
That's our word of the day. What was the word of the day on Running with Roman?
Bogus. That's
bogus.
The position you just put me in.
Well done. Well done. I did get a nice little note here. I was listening on the way in because you had TJ Walker, the sports talker. He left me a nice little note. It is crazy how similar our awful handwriting is. He just said, I sat in this chair today as Roman's guest, and then autographed his name. I'm putting that up for the YouTube stream there if you want to see it. So it was nice hearing you guys debate starting lineups. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was a good little back and forth there.
Yeah, I mean, he goes, I probably should explain, like, try to keep your points not too long, because we only got 22 minutes here. 22 minutes. So, but it was great. I thought I enjoyed it. We kept it logical and friendly. But still bantered it.
You guys didn't fight.
No. I'm thinking I'm going to maybe incorporate a little Roman and TJ's Wednesdays on the Running with Roman show or something when the regular season starts up. Maybe something like that.
I like it. And then I walk in, so I see TJ walk out, which I knew I was going to because I heard him on the radio when I was driving in. And then you got Roush out there just blogging his heart out. And I was like, are you too good for Running with Roman? He was like, absolutely. He's like, I've got it going great. And I let Roman know if you don't pay it, I'm not sitting in for the show.
Can't afford Nick, yeah.
Not everyone here's a team player.
Thought that maybe the offseason price would be all right, but part of it.
Speaking of team playing, I'm going on Scoot's show tomorrow morning.
Saw this. It's early day for me.
I don't think Scoots realizes how much of a struggle this is going to be for me. So, John has not been, ever since he broke his arm, he's just not sleeping through the night. So he's getting in bed with me sometimes. And if he's not, he's still getting up at 7 a.m. So I'm going to have to, I don't want to wake my wife and my daughter up any earlier than I have to. So I'm going to have to find a way to talk on the radio without my son either waking up or more likely interrupting me throughout the segment there. So it's going to be a disaster, but if this were if it were anybody else besides Drive In with Dingus, I would probably be like, I can't. But I don't really care if it's a disaster interview on Scoots' show. I may just let my son answer all of his questions when he asks. He's gonna be like, "Hey, what do you think about U of L baseball?" I'm like, "John, take this one, buddy. What do you got?" And then he'll just start talking about Crazy Frog and breaking his arm, and that'll be the radio. You want to tune in though. I'll be on at some point tomorrow morning, 7 to 8. Mornings with Dingus, drive in with Dingus, sunrise with Scoots, whatever we're calling the show. I refuse to call it by its real name. I'll be on there because I'm a team player. I'm not a Nick Roush out here. Just doing what's got to be done. How was your Tuesday night, buddy?
It was good.
You're sorry, you're too busy training.
Just for a second there. It was good. Good Tuesday night. Didn't do a whole lot.
Did you avoid the vices that led you to having a bad Monday night?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I still don't even know what that is. My wife, that was her favorite part of the show yesterday. It's like you talking about bad things that happened but refusing to get into details, and then casually dropping that Trevor had to leave the real spiel because of his elbow. And I was like, what the hell's going on with everybody? She's like, I was losing it. I was like, just the mystery surrounding my current and former producers.
Super weird day yesterday.
On a daily basis, yeah. I talked with Trevor last night.
Or the day before, I mean.
His elbow was still hurting him.
Yeah. Had a normal night, though, last night.
Nothing going on?
Nope. Actually, just hung out with the girlfriend. Made dinner. She made dinner. Let me not say that. Well, actually, I seared the chicken up. But got into this show. And I don't think she really realizes this, and I shouldn't say this, but we started the show last night. She was wanting to watch it. It's called Sirens. It's like number 2 on Netflix right now.
I keep seeing everybody talking about the show.
She hadn't seen the trailer, but I had accidentally watched the trailer. Like, in my weird evening, I saw the Sirens trailer. So I just had it in my head. And then she wanted to watch it last night, so we watched it. And, of course, she falls asleep, halfway through, or right at the end of the first episode, or maybe at the start of the second episode.
That's the way that it goes.
And then all the lights are on and stuff, and we haven't gotten ready for bed fully, and then it's like, okay, now I'm getting a little notification that says 1 episode left. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
If she sees this, she's going to be very upset. I didn't know. Very weird show. I can't wait to get home or to her house later or to home later and watch this and finish it up because super, super interesting. Super interesting. Don't really understand what's exactly happening, but I've got to know. I've got to figure it out. Great. Building into the show to lead to a climax. It seems like it's like ever peaking, and then I still don't actually really know what's happening, which is like kind of the purpose. So excited to see how that finishes.
We need a new show to watch again because I love the feeling of like looking forward to watching a show at night because you're very, very into it. And we wrapped up the John Hamm show last week. It was the season finale on Friday or Thursday, whenever it came out. And like last night, we were still watching the Valley, and I can't. It is like the only trash TV show that I watch anymore, and I can't do it. I'm at the point now where I'm old enough, and I'm just like, I hate all of these people so much. It just makes me. I'm a more angry person when I'm watching the show. But the problem that you had watching shows with Holly is a very familiar one. I don't have it so much anymore because we have a routine now. We get the kids down to sleep. We go downstairs. Typically, we eat like a late dinner, and then we watch some TV, hang out, spend some quality time for a couple of hours, and go to sleep. But back in the day, before kids, or even when it was just Virginia, like your nighttime routine, you have dinner, and then like we would get in bed to watch TV together. And without fail, Mary would fall asleep. After getting her to settle on a show, she would fall asleep 20 minutes into every single episode. From 2008 through like 2019, every show that I watched, I probably had to rewatch it 2 or 3 times because every episode I'm going back and watching it for the second or the third time. The good news was I had all the answers to every single one of her questions because I'd watched the episode like twice the night before. So that was, I don't think it's an atypical problem to have, but maybe we'll give Sirens a shot. If it's very, like a page turner,
yeah,
the page turner equivalent of TV. I just keep seeing people talk about how weird it is.
It's weird. It's weird. Did you watch House of Dragon?
No.
Oh, that's right.
We've talked about it.
You refuse to do it.
I've punted on the entire Game of Thrones franchise.
One of the Targaryen main characters in that movie is the main character in this show.
I don't even acknowledge the word Targaryen anymore.
That kind of is throwing me off a bit because in my head, this is like, that's a 16-year-old Targaryen. Why is she acting like this? But that's just like I'm weird like that. If I've watched like someone for the first time ever and they're in a super important role in something I either enjoyed or is a long show, and I'd never seen that character before, they're kind of permanently that in my head. I don't know if anybody else experiences that, but it's good. I like it. I can't wait to finish it.
All right. Maybe we'll give it a shot.
Big X Big Bets went 2-1 last night. We're off to a hot June, 4-1.
Does that include the one that you gave out a little bit early?
Yeah. Hunter Green under 2.5 earned runs. Got out of there before that.
I was gonna say if you hadn't given that out during our show or if you had and it hadn't hit, I feel like you wouldn't have counted it.
It hit.
It hit, and now he's back on the injured list today.
Back on the injury list. Hurt groin.
Don't worry about it. Here we go. 10 minutes into the show, you're going to give me. Don't worry about it, though. Our superstar, we have a backup plan.
I know where this is.
Management was ready for this. We gave a major league contract, and I love this guy. We gave a major league contract today to Wade Miley. And his 8.79 minor league ERA so far this season, he's going to plug that hole of Hunter Green right up. No worries about it. We've got Wade coming in, and I'm a Miley guy, but there's no reason for him to be wearing a major league jersey this year. We're just not a serious organization.
I'm taking his Ks in his first start.
Wade Miley?
Yeah.
He doesn't strike out guys. He's not a big strikeout guy.
He's not?
He gets a lot of fly ball outs. This team is changing me. This team and the way that Kroll is handling everything and the Castellinis, they're changing me for the worse. I can't handle it. They did win last night. We have the very very, very rare chance of taking a series from the Brewers tonight. Yes, I did. I mean, did you see how the game ended last night?
Yeah.
I mean, it's good, but I mean, we've got 2 outs, routine grounder to Ellie, kind of double pumps for some reason, then throws it as hard as he can, throws it over first baseman's head. So, it's all right. We're still up by 2. Got an insurance run. Will Benson, your boy, hit a home run in the 8th.
Yep.
And so 4-2 runner on second.
Tough right now, though.
He's still like our third best hitter. Even like striking out 3 times, but having the chance of hitting a home run per game is makes you the third best Reds hitter right now. So it looks like the Brewers are going to hit a 2-run home run to tie the game up. TJ Friedl goes over the wall, brings it back. I was still kind of so mad. I was watching the game outside. I was still kind of so mad that I didn't get nearly as excited as I should have. I was excited, but I was I can't believe that this even got that dramatic. But it was the play of the season. If it hadn't happened, we're talking not mini Reds break, extended Reds break. I would have had to have taken a full 3 weeks off. But thankfully, TJ made the play. TJ's the only good, consistent Red this year.
Wade Miley was just on the mound. Just got out of a tough 8th right there.
Well,
the base is loaded.
Get him ready. It's going to get him ready for his time as a starter in 5 days in Cincinnati, apparently.
1 inning, 3 hits. Base is loaded.
I mean, his numbers are awful. He was great for us 3 years ago. His numbers have been awful, and they signed him today. Everyone's it's an absolute joke, the moves these people make. All right, we'll move on, I promise. We do have lots of stuff to get to. We're inching closer and closer to Louisville baseball. I've got some baseball topics to get. Roman, I mean, would it be fair to say that your knowledge of the history of Louisville baseball is not great?
Not at all.
I think there are a lot of Louisville fans that are in the same boat as you are. It's a program that, like I said, when I was growing up, and I grew up as a baseball guy. I was playing at all the local fields, doing a lot of travel ball. Baseball was kind of my thing through high school. I knew next to nothing about Louisville Cardinals baseball because there was nothing to know. They never really flirted with NCAA tournament trips. They had basically no history. They didn't make a single appearance in the NCAA tournament until I was in college. And then, what they've done over the last 20 years, that just makes it all the more remarkable. So what we're going to do a little bit later in the show, we're going to have a little Louisville baseball trivia. And I'm going to make it fair. I'm going to give you multiple choice questions.
Okay.
Because you're not alone. I think there are a lot of fans listening who are primarily football, men's basketball fans. It doesn't mean that they dislike the other U of L sports.
Yeah.
But they only kind of tune in when those teams are making deep runs in the tournament. They'll jump on the volleyball bandwagon. They'll jump on the women's basketball bandwagon. They'll jump on the baseball bandwagon. They'll jump on the whatever bandwagon. But they don't know the ins and the outs of the history of the sport.
Yeah, outside of the recent draft picks, there's not a lot that people do know.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. We went from basically an insanely low level of history to we've got all these major leaguers. We've been to 5 College World Series over the past 17 years. We've got a chance to go back this year. So the vast majority of these questions are going to be related to the past 2 decades. But we'll do that later in the show. But it'll be an educational purpose. I'm not trying to stump you or anything. It's just going to be a learning excursion
Okay.
for us. So we'll do that. We've got 2 decent sporting events tonight. You've got 2 options if you're looking to kill time between now and Friday. We've got the start of the Women's College World Series in softball, the finals. We've got the first game of the Stanley Cup Finals. We've got the NBA Finals starting tomorrow. Can you explain to me why the NBA Finals has to take so much time between the end of the conference finals and the first game of the finals? Like, I get that. Have a fluid schedule in place. Like, let's get this thing going.
Yeah, that's just how they are.
I would have loved a Monday night game.
I don't know why they do that.
Or even a Tuesday night game. We had to take 5 days off.
They just want the finals in June.
I know you're excited, though.
I'm excited.
We'll talk to you a little bit about that. Real quickly, though, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. The self-promotion, we do enough of it. You got to do it. I'll do a little bit here. We talked about all of the early post-draft declaration college basketball top 25 updates from this week and where Louisville sits in them. Mine was supposed to go up yesterday. Went up today. Would you like to hear where I've got Louisville?
Can I guess?
Yes, for sure.
8.
Very close. Got them at 9. Are you mad at me for that?
Yes.
Okay. Explain your.
It's too low.
Tell me why I'm overcompensating to try and hide my fandom.
Because I don't believe. Well, personally, I don't believe you think there's 8 rosters better than ours in college basketball at this current moment. I'd really be surprised to hear how you break down why you believe teams 8 and 7 are better. But that's a personal reason. Secondly, I think that because of how you personally put an emphasis on backcourts in college basketball, I don't think you would confidently say that there's more than 3 backcourts better than ours. So the fact that you've got
I agree with that.
Such a weighted thing in how you've used these teams, that means you've got to be putting a lot of weight in the backcourts that you've got above us. In my head, that makes me think you are trying to say that there's 3 backcourts that are better than ours if you've only got us at 9. That's just the personal Roman versus Mike Rutherford's thought process.
I mean, this is something that I have to deal with as far as, you know, I don't want to say I'm sensitive to the notion that people will read some stuff when I do national stuff and call me a homer, because it's going to happen. If there's anything, it's always happened. And I was doing this job for 10 years before COVID hit, and anytime I wrote something that was correct but a little bit critical of a program like Cincinnati, you've got all their fans. Oh, he's a Louisville guy, and the Kentucky stuff goes without saying. So I think that I'm always kind of sensitive to trying to put prejudice aside. But then I'm also like, am I overcompensating here? Am I being overly complimentary to a program like Kentucky because I don't want people to? But I don't think it's that difficult to just put the fandom aside a little bit. Like we have honest talks about Louisville basketball all the time.
Yeah, we know how many question marks there are centered around certain aspects of our roster right now.
And I've always said that's the difference. Like I clearly I'm a homer, but I don't let it. I try not to let it cloud when we talk about objective thinking. And I've always said, when I was doing the blogging stuff, when new media was first really coming up, and people were like, well, what's the big difference between this and, say, the beat writer at the Courier-Journal who covered U of L? And I would say the only real difference when we talk about coverage, I mean, obviously, I used to get into more quirky stuff than the big J journalists did, but now I think everybody's kind of doing that. But I would always say, if you read a recap from the Courier-Journal report, that they would say the score was this player scored that, here's why Louisville lost, here are the details. And I would always say, well, what we do is I'll lay out the exact same stuff. Here's why the team lost. Here's who scored, who played, who. And it made me sad. And I bring the emotion into it. So I think you can still be objective while acknowledging, like I would love to have Louisville at number 1 every year, but I'm trying to be as just kind of, you basically just, you talk about the things that you would not talk about when you're having fan arguments. Like all the little I actually think this is a weakness about this team, but I'm not going to say it because I'm in a full-on argument with my UK relative or friend or coworker or whatever.
We don't do that.
You take those things into consideration when you're talking about stuff like this. So let me, I'll give you the top 10 here, and I want you to tell me which team you think I'm erring in by having them above Louisville.
Okay.
So number 1, I've got Houston.
Fair.
I told you this already. I think they. I mean, just
Don't know why there's not more people having them at 1.
yeah, it's a lot of Purdue love, which I get it, but like, what does Kelvin Sampson have to do at this point? Like even if they weren't bringing back all these guys, if they had nobody on the roster that looked good at this point, I'd be like, well, they're going to win 30 games because he wins 30 games every single year. But they bring back 3 starters from a team that you could argue should have won the national title last year, and they're 3 good starters. Miles Uzan was one of the best point guards in the country in the second half of last year. Emmanuel Sharp's very good. Joseph Tugler was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. They've got a 5-star freshman coming in Chris Senack. They've got a loaded recruiting class. They're going to be good. Purdue, I've got it too. They bring back 4 starters from a good team from last year. They also are remarkably consistent. To me, they have to be 1-2 in some order.
Mm-hmm.
3, I've got Florida. I had them at 18 the first time I did this. They have made strides since then, namely by getting Xavier Lee and Boogie Flan for the backcourt. They also got Alex Condon, who was like kind of their breakout front court player last year. He's officially coming back. Their front court, I think, will be the best in the country. 4, I've got Texas Tech. JT Toppin, first-team All-American last year. He's the biggest stay-or-go decision in college basketball from this past season. Coming back to Texas Tech is a huge deal. Christian Anderson averaged double figures last year. I think he could have a big-time season. And they got some good players in the portal. Juwan Watts was a highly touted guy from Washington State. They got him. St. John's, I got it 5. We kind of, criticized them a little bit because of the early exit and losing R.J. Lewis, but they loaded up in the portal, and Patino is a very good coach. 6, I've got UConn. Solo Ball, I think, is going to be a star. They got Silas DeMarie from Georgia to come in and help them out, and then Alex Caravan choosing to come back to school gives them that continuity that they've had in recent years that's helped make them so successful. BYU at 7. Super interesting team. They are loaded with talent. It's the most anticipated season in the history of BYU basketball. They've got A.J. DeBanza. They gave Rob Wright $1 million or $1 billion to come over from Baylor, and they brought back 4 key players from a team that went to the Sweet 16 last year. And then 8, the last team that I've got above Louisville, and it pained my heart to have to do this. I put Michigan above us. Getting Yaxel is a big deal. And I like the other. I mean, Namari Burnett's very good. Elliot Cadeau, I think, can be a good point guard for them. I did put us above Kentucky. 9. I got us at 9, Kentucky at 10. I know we have to go to break in a second. But real quickly, who's the one that pisses you off that I put above us?
BYU.
BYU?
Yes.
You're not buying into the Kevin Young hype?
No.
Okay.
I think
A lot of talent. A lot of offense.
I think top to bottom, 1 through 6, Michigan. I can't argue with it. I can't truly argue with it in terms of what we know that they are. Those guys that they brought in, it's fair.
Dusty can coach.
I'd put, if this is how you feel, I'd put Michigan at 7. I'd put us at 8, and I'd go BYU 9, Kentucky at 10.
Well, you said you thought that at least 2 teams we should be ahead of that I would have.
I was wrong. No,
okay, so you're okay with the other ones.
I'm okay with the other ones.
All right.
Even though I don't think Purdue's going to be there.
They might not be.
Things all said or done. I can't argue it. That's a hot take.
They don't win the national title. That's for sure. All right, we got to go to break. When we come back, Sean Moth, the voices of the Cardinals, is going to come on and talk a little Louisville baseball with us. Sean Moth after the break on the Call Your Law Firm hotline here on 1450 The Big X. Presented by United Mechanical. United Mechanical, they are your trusted partner and Louisville's MVP for commercial and industrial HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and refrigeration needs. Call United Mechanical today or any day at any time at 502-339-1133. You know our guy Corey. He's there to answer the phone. He's there to help you out. That's the United Mechanical guarantee. We've got Louisville baseball. It's officially now exactly 48 hours away from first pitch between the Cards and the Canes. Game 1 of the Louisville Super Regional that's going to go down at Jim Patterson Stadium. ESPN2 will have the TV coverage for Friday. Saturday at 11 a.m., that'll be on the Big Dog, not Vince Merrill. ESPN will have the TV coverage for Game 2 between the Cards and the Canes. Louisville just 2 wins away from its 6th trip to the College World Series. Exciting times are here. I can't stop coughing. Exciting times are here, though. And to talk about it more on the Call Your Law Firm hotline, we're going to bring in the voice of the Cardinals himself, one of our favorites, friend of the program, a true friend of the program, Sean Moth, who joins us now. Sean, how are you, buddy?
Roman told me we were going to be talking about the Avs locking up Brock Nelson as their second-line center in the Stanley Cup Finals, but we can talk baseball. That's fine. I can be flexible.
Well, we're not going to talk Rockies baseball because I would not want to.
They won a series.
They did.
They had champagne in the clubhouse. I mean, come on.
They're coming for that 1898 Louisville Colonels team or whatever it was that had such a bad mark.
Let's talk about good baseball.
Let's talk about good baseball. You were obviously there in Nashville last weekend as Louisville wins 3 games in 3 days. With all the talk, I mean, you've seen this team every step of the way from day one. You've seen the ups, you've seen the downs. It wasn't a shock to see Louisville win this regional. We've known that this team has the potential all season long. But the way in which it happened, to me, was so surprising. Doing it with the arms, doing it, honestly, when they didn't play, like, pristine baseball against 3 really good teams. How surprised were you at the way in which Louisville won 3 games in 3 days last weekend?
Yeah, I was going to say, you hit the nose right on the head, or the nail right on the head. It's that, yeah, we thought we could maybe outslug some teams down there and win a regional, but the fact that the pitching staff went 27 innings, gave up 4 earned runs, opponents hit, 108 against us. We knew that Vanderbilt's offense was meager, but East Tennessee has a very good offense. They had the Conference Player of the Year. Wright State, same thing. Boston Smith is a stud. They had a ton of home runs. So there was definitely a little bit of fear in terms of how our pitching staff would fare. With that being said, Parker Detmer's going down 4 starts into the season, and I think we talked about this last time I was on, shifted the responsibility to a lot of different people. And most of those people responded really well, but it was those innings that those people were expected to throw that were picked up by some other people that started to put some holes in the pitching staff. Now, Patrick Forbes was not 100% for a couple of starts that he tried to grit his teeth and fight through. They put him on the shelf, so he missed a couple more, and then he kind of worked his way back with a couple of starts. So Patrick, opens the season with a career high in strikeouts against number 2 Texas, and the Cards get a walk-off win. And he was pretty dominant until he ran into that forearm tightness. And so he wasn't really back to 100% until that regional. And I thought the tone he set with the 13 strikeouts against East Tennessee and what was probably the best played game from all 3 facets of the game standpoint of the tournament was huge. And then when you turn the ball over to Tucker Biven, he's got an opportunity as he's worked his way into the rotation to pick up where he left off. And, good pitching gets to be contagious. And it's a Vandy team. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. It's a team that is very average when it comes to the bats. And so they got their first hit with runners in scoring position of the entire weekend in the 9th inning of the Wright State game on Sunday. And so not only did they not have good bats, but they were bad over the weekend. And then the pitching performance by Ethan Everly was fantastic. He's been very good. He's been really tough on lefties. He was so composed. And I don't know if people listen to the post-game interview much, but he is such a great kid and so beyond his years. And he's a little old for a freshman, but, he recognized that he wasn't good in the conference tournament, even though he had to come out of the bullpen in a weird situation. And he even admitted that he was terrible in the scrimmages. And so he endeared himself to me by quoting Tom Jurich and said, I just realized that I needed to be humble and hungry. And so that was the approach he took. And ultimately, I think 2 things were really big factors. I think factor number 1 is you had 3 teams that went through a gauntlet of a postseason in each of their conferences to win the conference tournament in that regional, and one that didn't. And at the same time, when the Cards pulled into Louisville after the bus ride from Durham, Dan McDonnell, in no uncertain terms, told the team that I win in the postseason. That's what I do, and that's what we do here at Louisville. And basically the message was, now you're going to trust me, and we're going to win. And that's exactly what they did. And, you know, it's really hard to argue with the resume of a guy that's been to 10 Super Regionals in 18 seasons and is on the cusp of potentially a 6 College World Series.
I guess the next question is, I mean, getting Forbes back is huge. That's your number one guy. Getting, Bivin into a situation where he's comfortable coming in as the number 2 starter was great. You know, Everly came out of the bullpen as well. The last time we saw him getting the start was nice there. It was the other guys, though, to me, the bullpen arms that came out that I think they made the difference. Justin West pitching as well as he did. Daniel Levitch pitching so well. Jake Schweitzer's been good. I think the question that comes out of this is, like, is this sustainable? Moving on, Miami, we always know they've got big-time bats, and then, God willing, if we're able to move on to Omaha, like, can this become the way that this team performs throughout the postseason, or is this going to be viewed as kind of a blip and like, well, what a great weekend we had, now we're back to the normal Cards?
Well, I think if you look at the way the numbers have trended for the starters that we mentioned, they're all headed in the right direction. You know, Everly has started 8 games. Bivens now started 4, and of course Forbes has started 13. Schweitzer and Danilevich have really been the 2 premier arms on this roster, and Schweitzer's basically had 2 rough outings. His first outing, where I'm sure he had some jitters, and then a later outing against Wake Forest. But, he has a 234 earned run average in 34 innings, and Danilevich is sitting right at 235 over 30 innings, and they have 6 saves between them as they've kind of taken over the closer role for Bivin now that he's moved into the starting role. So I think those 2 in particular have been phenomenal. We forget that going into this regional, there was 1 player on the roster that had ever played in an NCAA postseason game, and it was Brennan Cutts, who threw a complete game at the Lexington Regional for Indiana State. And he came on, and you can't undervalue the dominant 3 innings he gave the Cards on Friday, because that allowed the pen to be completely fresh, as, Forbes just handed the ball off to Brennan Cutts. And so Cutts is a guy that's been there before. It's a been there, done that. And Justin West, when you look at stats, and I'm guilty of this as the radio guy, the team sends a guy in and like, 6.67 ERA, this guy's not great. But when you really dig into the numbers, Justin West had about 3 outings on the road where he got absolutely lit up. And outside of that, he has been phenomenal. And we even joked for a while that we need to see home Justin West. Like, we need him to think it's Jim Patterson Stadium. And in his last 3 or 4 road outings, starting back at Clemson, he's been lights out. And so I don't think that the guys that came out are an abomination. It'll be curious to see if Peter Michael, if TJ Schlager, if Jack Brown, if Ty Stark, if some of those guys get called on, Colton Hartman, if they're able to step up to that caliber. But let's remember, now we're playing a 3-game weekend series, which the Cards basically did down in Nashville. It could be as few as 2 games. And, if you're going to go Forbes handing off to Cutts, who's to say how easy it can be if Bivin gives you a good 5 or 6 innings to hand it off to Danilevich and Schweitzer and call it good. So a lot has to happen right, but I think for the core arms that we saw them at their best, and I think that's the direction they're trending.
Matt Klein coming back was enormous for this team. I mean, he hits home runs in both the first 2 games of the regional. How much do you think that can help the pitching, though, as well? I mean, when you've got a comfortable guy behind the plate who knows what he's doing, has been in this program for a long time, clearly has great defensive skills. I don't think we need to give him all the credit for the way that the arms worked last weekend, but I feel like that probably is maybe an overlooked aspect of why the pitching was so good last weekend.
I think it's immeasurable. I know it's because he's a Trinity Shamrock, but
exactly right.
It's the fact that it's almost like the placebo effect. Whether or not he is better at receiving the team or leading the team or blocking pitches or, helping Roger manage the pitching staff, that perception is there that he does. And so just the psychological boost of him being back, I think alone had a huge impact on it. And I don't think the numbers lie. And it's not to take away from what Tiger Tyson and what George Baker and what Colin Mowry did burning his red shirt once he got hurt, or once Klein got hurt, did. But, the pass ball numbers don't really lie. The walks by the pitchers don't necessarily lie. And so I think there's definitely Matt Klein is a dude aspect to it, but I also think there's that placebo effect of it's just the mental of it's Matt Klein, that's back, we're good. And so I think those two things combined to have an impact. And people need to remember, between Klein, Eddie King Jr., Alicea, the team, and Pike, the team is banged up to a point this year, and Dan's not going to make this excuse, but the regional on Friday was the second game this year that he put out the lineup that he wants to put out and would like to have put out opening weekend or the opening day all season. Second time. The third time was the following day, and the fourth time was on Sunday. And, Eddie went down in game number 5. Dan likes to get everybody on the diamond that first weekend. So Lucas Moore didn't even start one of the games down in Arlington. So for him to be able to put that core group together, and you'll notice, too, nobody came off the bench. I mean, they played those 9 guys, but for that to be the second, third, and fourth time all season he's been able to put in the lineup he wants to put in, goes to show how gritty this team has been to, push their way to the 35 wins and get themselves into a 2 seed in the regional. And now with a full complement of players, a loose, dangerous team can really do some damage, and who's to say what'll happen?
Talking with Sean Moth here on the Call Your Law Firm hotline. You'll hear him calling all the action starting on Friday at 3 o'clock over on 970 WGTK, as well as 93.9 The Ville, as Louisville takes on Miami for a spot in Omaha at the College World Series. I know Louisville didn't face Miami this year, but I'm sure you are adequately prepped. It's a Miami team that went into this postseason with kind of a similar record to us, not a great overall record, and I think they were 500 in ACC play, but it's Miami. They've got the pedigree. They've got the history. It's a talent-rich program. What can you tell us about the Hurricanes and the challenges that they'll bring with them to Jim Patterson this weekend?
Well, I'll start with a fun note, and a lot of people know this, but Chris Dominguez is their third base coach and their assistant coach. And so the 07 regional MOP will be back in Louisville. He has been back and forth from Louisville to Miami for a few years now, having worked for the Hurricanes before. He was the head coach of Bellarmine. He was actually a GA with the Cardinals, and so it'll be fun to welcome Chris home. But basically, you look at their lineup. You look at Daniel Cuvée, who is the All-ACC third baseman. He led the ACC in RBI with 81. He has 17 home runs. The Cards saw him last year. Louisville took 2 of 3 in Miami last year and then lost in the conference tournament. So they went 2-2 last season against this team, but it's a very different team. There are very few returning pieces, and in fact, these two teams are very similar in terms of the fact that they kind of felt like they needed a reset. They brought in some transfers and portal guys, and they've kind of refreshed themselves and then had a little bit of an up-and-down season that finished kind of disappointingly, and then they've caught fire in the postseason. But Cuvé's number 1. Dorian Gonzalez, their captain, has 11 home runs and 56 stakes. And Jake Ogden's been a really good transfer from UNC Greensboro at the top of their lineup. And so they definitely have some quality bats. Their team average is at 275, so they're not as formidable as Wright State or East Tennessee State. The pitching staff features A.J. Sisker, who is a freshman, and then Griffin Hugas, who transferred from Cincinnati. Hugas went the distance in their Columbia game in the 1-0-1-0 game. They caught a break thanks to Columbia beating Southern Miss, and Sisker got the victory in that first game. So they definitely have a 1-2 punch there. Lumpkin threw the game on Monday night that a lot of people watched, and he's been pretty consistent starter. Their closer, Brian Walters, has 10 saves, but the ERA is almost 5. He gave up a couple runs in the ninth, made things interesting on Monday night. So those are some of the names and some of the numbers. The team ERA is a little over 5, which anymore in college baseball is okay, and defensively they're pretty solid. The one thing that kind of jumped out to me, I guess I'll throw out 2 things. One, they're 8-15 on the road. And so while they're hot coming off a win at Hattiesburg, which, by the way, they stayed in Hattiesburg and they're flying to Louisville today, but they have not been great on the road, and that was especially true in conference play. And just a small side note, you can read anything into it you want, but the Cardinals are 3-0 all-time in the NCAA regionals against Miami, including 07 in Columbia twice and the 2013 regional in Louisville.
I was actually going to bring that up next. Instead, I'll pivot to super regional memories at Louisville. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think 4 of our 5 punch tickets to Omaha have come at Patterson. I believe Kennesaw State, Kentucky, the Oklahoma State one in 07, and then we blew out East Carolina a couple times. Out of those four, I mean, the environment for all four, very, very different, but always electric. The first one was so special. Beating Kentucky, obviously, was very special. What's your favorite memory from Super Regionals that we've hosted at Patterson from over the years?
Oh man, that's wild. It's funny because seeing the cards with those Astros uniforms down at Vandy, the team debuted those uniforms on the dog pile in Vandy, and they wanted to wear them. They had to ask Roger Williams if it was okay if they wore them because he wanted to be sure that Jeff Thompson, the starting pitcher, was okay with it. And when he gave the go-ahead, they laid all the uniforms around the edge of the room, and the team came in and lost their minds. They'd never seen them before. And so it was fun to have that flashback to the Vandy Super Regional, which was unbelievably shocking. But, I mean, you can't beat the first. I'll never forget 07. We're up 16-2 in the 8th or 9th inning, and I'm still just nervous as heck against this incredible offense in Oklahoma State. And Isaiah Howes hits a grand slam onto the berm, and I kind of exhaled and thought, I think we got this one. We're 3 outs away, and we're up by 18. I think I can breathe. And you mentioned it, too. I mean, to see what Drew Ellis did to Kentucky and just the atmosphere, I think that's what I'm most excited about. I mean, there hasn't been a single bad atmosphere. Even though it was Kennesaw State, the fans showed out. East Carolina, Louisville just absolutely dominated with Reed Detmers and Bobby Miller. And now I think, it's an opportunity to be back. And I think watching the tickets sell out as quickly as they did, I'm probably most excited about that because this year hasn't really afforded us very many opportunities because of timing, because of weather, because of the team's performances, because of game changes, to really have that crowd out at Jim Patterson Stadium. So that's probably what I'm most excited about. I would probably say 07 is number one and maybe 14 is number two in terms of those super regionals.
You think about, all these memories, they happen in such a short period of time. It doesn't feel like that because it was, so much, every single year, it feels like there was a big postseason memory being made. And, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show. Since COVID, it's been the first, real adversity that Louisville baseball has faced since Dan McDonald got here. And he admitted, I think after they won the region, he talked about, he's kind of been in low places, and this was a big deal for him. You've been around this team throughout these last 4 years. They've clearly been disappointed with the way that 3 of the last 4 seasons have gone. Is it, I don't want to say it's relief, is it kind of like a monkey off your back to get to this point, or is it just, have they sort of conducted themselves as this is business as usual, this is still what we expect?
I think it's a combination of the two. I think the monkey is lifted off the back because, as I mentioned earlier, nobody on this team understands how it works. This is like the 07 team. That's the only time Dan's had a team where he didn't have guys that have been to at least a super regional, if not a College World Series, on his roster. And, now it's a situation where I think Justin West and Eddie King Jr. were redshirts in 22 and kind of watched from afar as Cam Masterman hit his home run, and you did such a fine job with the secondary play-by-play during your show describing that to the fans, which is still my favorite moment in Rutherford show history. But, it's the monkey off the back for having a team with zero experience be able to punch through and get that opportunity. But in the same light, this is what Dan and this is what Rods and Eric Snyder, Adam Brable, Brian Mundorf, Michael Allman, the entire staff expect. This is the standard, and it's, we talk about it with the basketball team. You want to be relevant. You want to be competitive. You want to get into the tournament, and you're going to lose in the first round. It happens. You're going to lose in regionals. It happens. But more often than not, the Cardinals have played well in the postseason, and that's been a hallmark of what Dan McDonald's done. And so I think it's a combination of now that the regional is through, the monkey's off the back, and now that we're staring down the barrel of the super, it's an opportunity for this team to understand what the meaning of the name on that front of the jersey means. And I think there's the hope that the home crowd and that momentum can carry us through.
I think seeing how quickly the tickets went and then hearing how many people, just people who have texted me about this week and people who are texting into the show and people, the overall buzz surrounding Louisville baseball and this general feeling that people are just trying to pass the time to get to Friday, it reinforces that, we were desperate for this as a fan base. I think it hurt the overall. I know baseball's not up there with football and men's basketball, but this was something that the fan base came to expect, and to have it taken away, especially with that 2020 team having their season cut short, and then to experience the turbulence of the last few years, the fan base, I don't think they even really realized how much this meant to them to get June baseball back at Jim Patterson Stadium. I mean, I'm expecting this environment on Friday and Saturday, hopefully not Sunday. Hopefully we just get the this thing done in 2 days. I'm expecting it to be as good as it's ever been out there. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same thing.
I'm hopeful that's the case. Mike, I'm not so sure, too, that there's not still a little bit of a residual hangover, even though Jeff Brom, who's been in attendance a lot this year at Jim Patterson Stadium, has had the football team at such a high level, and that the revival came to fruition this year. But, there's some lean years for the men's basketball team, and I think there's still a residual hangover, maybe with the lack of postseason success, to be able to drink that in, and maybe that's led to this. So I think that's a great observation. It's funny for me to talk about it like it's been, 9 years since we had a winning record, when we were in a couple of one-run games in College Station in 2022 with a chance to go to Omaha. So, it feels like it's been forever. The reality is it's been a little bleak since the pandemic, but, that 20 team was supposed to potentially compete for a national title. The 22 game was scintillating in the postseason, but ran into a buzzsaw. And then there were definitely some lean years. And so I think your observation is perfect, that the fans are keyed up for this. And I think there's a little maybe men's basketball influence to it as well. But whatever the reason is, I'm ready. I want folks on the cabooses. I want folks on the overpass. I've always said I think we should do a watch party in the club over at football. You pipe in the TV or radio, folks can watch, can have a drink or two, and be together and socialize and have some fun, even though they can't be in the stadium. But we need all that support, and I think baseball is a sport that you can gravely underestimate the impact you have. And Vanderbilt's fans are fine, but they don't support their team when things aren't going well, and that's what a good fan base does. A good fan base rallies your team when they need the help. And that Vandy place turned into a library as soon as Alex Ali said to, as soon as things didn't go their way. As soon as the shot hit, when there was a move that didn't go their way and the reality set in that they might lose, even against Wright State, they just sat on their hands. And I know our fans won't do that. So I'm beyond excited about what can happen this weekend, and I just hope the Cards continue to play good baseball.
On the flip side, I mean, you talked about the lack of experience that these players have when it comes to the postseason. And if we're being real, the crowds for home baseball games with the team having a down year last year and then being up and down this year, maybe not what they were when the team was rolling along 7-8 years ago at its pinnacle. Like, this will be a different level of crowd for all of these guys. Is there a little bit of fear that maybe these guys are getting a little too amped up? I mean, I know Dan he's very good at getting everybody to calm down and relax and just play easy, but that feels like it's going to be a task for him on Friday before the game.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a little bit of that. We had really good crowds for Florida State. Unfortunately, North Carolina was early March, and so I don't think the weather was as cooperative as we would have liked. Obviously, the Kentucky walk-off win back in April, we had a great crowd. The numbers are a little harder to discern, and my memory doesn't allow me to remember very well because it's a ticket-sold proposition now that we sell tickets. But it's definitely something that he's going to have to gauge and going to have to temper. But ultimately, I think the 18 to 22-year-old attitude, a lot of these guys were excited to go on the road to places like Clemson because they wanted to hear atmosphere, they wanted to hear fans, and I know a lot of them were disappointed in Nashville. And so I think they are ready to hear those fans and to feel that atmosphere. And as you know, since you've been down that road, I mean, just nothing compares to just the sense you can walk into a building in postseason in any sport and you can just tell.
Now, here's what I really wanted to ask you about. This is why I brought you on the show, pretty much. I've known you for a decent amount of time. I had no idea that you had been in a movie before, let alone a baseball movie, which you informed me when we were having this conversation on the show earlier this week. You were in the movie Benched from 2018. Tell me about this.
So a friend of a friend asked if I wanted to get an agent to represent me and audition for TV as a movie. And I said, what's the context of this? Because I don't understand why. I acted in high school and college, but it's not something I've done here in Louisville. And they said, well, there's a lot of roles for sports announcers, so to speak, and there's actually a movie coming up. And at the time, I think it was Get Hard with Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart, and they were in need of a PA announcer. And I said, yeah, I'd absolutely be interested. So I drew up the papers. I got representation by an agency that's since gone under down in Nashville. Had an audition for, Blue Mountain State, the movie. I had an audition for a small role in Nashville. I had an audition for a couple other films that came to fruition, but I didn't get the parts. But this movie came along, and at the time it was called Rounding Third, and it was based on a play that was written for the stage and was adapted by a couple of guys down in Nashville that did country music videos and are very well known in that industry. And so, basically instead of the casting calls of the back in the day where you line up with a bunch of people that look like you and audition for a show, now most actors do what's called self-taping. So they give you the lines, you set up your iPhone and you record yourself, and then you submit it, and then the casting director looks through. Well, I had the luck and fortune that one of the guys that was directing the movie happened to be a college basketball fan and was particularly fond of Rick Pitino and the Cardinals from afar. And when he found out what I had done and what my background was, they called me and offered me the role. And so I went down on set in Nashville for 3 days. I had a trailer. I had to laugh because they knocked on my trailer one day and they're like, "Mr. Moth, we're ready to take you to set." And I'm like, "Well, it's just 75 yards over there. I can walk." They're like, "We got you." So they drove me to set. It actually has two relatively prominent actors. It's an okay story. It was quite an experience, but I haven't really told a ton of people. My son is actually a legitimate actor who's had some roles in some major motion pictures, including one with Adam Driver and Don Cheadle that's on Netflix called White Noise, and he still gets residual checks, so go ahead and fire up Netflix and watch that for him, so his next check is even bigger. But it was an experience I couldn't turn down, and I'm kind of disappointed that the agency went under because that was the last audition I had, and it's certainly something that I would embrace and love to do moving forward. I was secretly hoping that maybe the new Space Jam would give an opportunity, but we'll have to maybe see if the folks at Heyman want to jump in and we can get back into that business. But it was a quick weekend in Nashville. It showed why Hollywood films cost so much money because of how much they pay people and what they give you, and it was fun to be part of that experience. Not a great movie, though. Not a great movie. But I'm not
what's
ashamed.
your line?
I'm not ashamed of my quick performance.
What's your big line?
I stood on set all day, and at about 4:30, they said, "All right, we're ready for you." And I sat up in the press box, and I said all my lines. I changed my shirt. I said all my lines again. I changed my shirt a third time. I said all my lines, and it took me about 27 minutes, and then I drove home.
What was your big line in the movie?
Well, what was funny is if you're a Family Guy fan, the ongoing joke with Peter Griffin is when they say the title of the movie in the movie, he always acknowledges that. And they had me saying Rounding Third, and then they changed the name of the damn film. So I'm on camera. Don't blink. I'm on camera for maybe 2.5 seconds, and you'll hear my voice periodically. But I could only be on set for a few days because I already had a vacation planned, and they were all very nice. I didn't really get to interact with John McGinley or Garrett Delahunt a whole lot. It was 104 degrees in Nashville. It was beastly hot, but it was an incredible experience, and it's kind of fun. It's a fun factoid, I guess, and fun experience.
I love that you pulled the vacation card on me. Like, you only have me for 2 days. We got to get this thing wrapped up. I'm out of here.
I was getting nervous the last day, too, because I literally had a flight at like 6:30 in the morning out of Louisville, and we're down in Nashville. I'm like, I've been here for 2.5 days. I haven't done jack. So, I would really like to get on this movie and not end up on the cutting room floor. So I was grateful that that came to fruition.
I've got a heart out on Tuesday. Just let him know. Let everybody know. He's got a heart out now. We're going to hear him again. 2 days from now, you'll hear him on 970 WGTK as well as 93.9 The Ville, calling all the action this weekend between Louisville and Miami. Sean, we look forward to it. We're very happy that we're still talking baseball here in early June. We'll be talking to you hopefully again soon, celebrating a super regional victory.
I hope so. And if you're listening in somewhere, feel free to tweet at me or text me and let me know. We'll give you a shout out on the broadcast.
There he is, Sean Moth. He's the best. Joining us there on the Call Your Law Firm hotline. We'll be hearing from him. Boom. He gets the air sirens. A reminder before we go to break that the Collier Law Firm, they are your trusted partner when it comes to injury solutions for injuries at an accident or injuries on the job. At Collier Law Firm, their attorney fees start at just 25%. When they get your case resolved quickly, their clients are going to receive 75% as opposed to 60% like the big firms will, which means if you get $1 million settlement, that's an additional $150,000 into your pocket that you won't get if you go with one of those bigger firms. Lower fees, more for you. At the Collier Law Firm, they've got your back, not your wallet. Visit them online at collierlawfirm.com, COLYER lawfirm.com, or call them directly at 502-736-8141. Hurt in an accident, hurt on the job, Collier Law Firm. All right, big thanks to Sean Roth for joining us there. We're going to take a break. Now, when we come back, a couple other nuggets to get to, then we'll get to you guys on the Big X text line, 502-414-1450. Whatever you got for us today, we will take it. It's the Mike Rutherford Show, presented by United Mechanical. It's rolling on after the break here on 1450 and 96.1, the Big X. Big X Sports Radio. Big thanks to Sean Moth there, spending some time with us on the Call Your Law Firm hotline, getting us even more ready for Friday's first pitch between Louisville and Miami as the Cards and Hurricanes battle for a spot in the College World Series. Louisville looking to make it back to Omaha for the first time since 2019. Miami looking to make it back to Omaha for the first time since 2016. Two pretty proud programs, Miami with longer history, Louisville with better recent history, who have, I don't want to say fallen on hard times, but who haven't been at the level that they believe they should be in recent years, and both now with a golden opportunity to flip that narrative on its head and start giving the fans what they want. I thought there was a really, really good story today in the Courier-Journal by Peyton Titus, who was writing about, I don't want to say the battle, but the conflict that comes now with how to allocate resources when you're not a spotlight program, when you're not football or men's basketball, and you're not maybe getting everything that you believe that you want. Now, we've heard Dan McDonald talk about this for the last handful of years. He has, some people will say, well, he's using it as an excuse. He's brought it up. I think the timing of him bringing it up over the last couple of years has maybe rubbed some folks the wrong way. Louisville will miss the NCAA tournament, and then he'll bring up the lack of resources, the lack of facilities. It's not a complaint that's without merit. Louisville was promised a number of facility upgrades in recent years. They have, as of right now, not received those facility upgrades. And Peyton Titus does a good job for the Courier-Journal as far as going into why that's happened. If you go to the big-time ballparks in the SEC and even some of the ones in the ACC, you'll recognize that while Jim Patterson Stadium is certainly a gigantic step up from Old Cardinal Stadium, it's not on par with what the best programs in college baseball have as far as resources are concerned. So you look at the money that was earmarked for the renovations. In June of 2023, Louisville approved a $3 million upgrade to Jim Patterson Stadium. U of L, since then, they've renovated their locker room. That was primarily due to a six-figure donation from Henry Davis, the former Cardinal now playing for the Pittsburgh Pirates. They have not gotten that gigantic renovation yet. They also, back in 2021, announced that they'd secured a $3 million donation from Kroger to build a new indoor practice facility. That new that project, they haven't even broken ground on that. So a lot of people are like, well, what's the deal? The dugouts, they still feature the same kind of torn images from the 2007 College World Series that have been there for, going on to the better part of 2 decades now. And the story did a good job of breaking down exactly why those projects that Dan McDonald keeps talking about haven't come to fruition just yet. And one of the big reasons is the change in the landscape of college athletics. Dan Furman, who of course is the president of the official collective of U of L Athletics, the 502 Circle, was reached for comment. And he said, I know that he gets into it about resources of McDonald, but it's like I would be hard-pressed to find 7 teams that spent more money in the ACC, and the ACC was the most competitive baseball league in the country this year. In Furman's view, talent acquisition is the key to success. It's not about having great facilities or flashing lights or whatever. It's about getting the players who can compete, win championships, and to develop into successful pros. So Stephen Williams is the SID, the spokesperson for baseball. And he got asked about all these facility upgrades and facility creations that the projects haven't started yet. And, why has that happened? And he said, since we announced the indoor facility in the spring of 2021, the college athletics landscape has changed dramatically. With that in mind, we decided to pause on that and the other capital projects throughout the department, as has been the norm with athletic departments around the country, with the constantly changing landscape around NIL, revenue sharing, etc. The University of Louisville is constantly evaluating how to best utilize the resources provided by our fans, donors, and sponsors so that all of our programs are well positioned to compete at the highest level and win championships. Basically, you've got to find money within your own athletic program now to pay players moving forward. You don't have the full allotment of what you would like to use moving forward, and that includes baseball. There are no longer partial scholarships for baseball. Everybody who plays on the team now is going to get a scholarship moving forward, but you still are going to have to give some of these players, the high-end players, NIL deals in order to keep them away from the SEC powers that be or the other Southern schools or West Coast schools that put a ton of money into baseball and maybe don't even have football programs to cut into that budget or don't have elite men's basketball programs. Cal State Fullerton, UC Irvine, baseball is the big show in those programs. We mentioned the other day, Southern Miss. Baseball is kind of the only thing that they do well. Those programs are going to allocate a substantial chunk of their funds to baseball moving forward, and now Louisville has to keep up with the Joneses. What Furman's comment says to me is that, look, we're going to have a limited amount of money to pour into programs like baseball, like any power conference program that both fields football and basketball teams. You, at that point, have a choice. Do you want to upgrade facilities? Do you want to get state-of-the-art stadiums? Do you want to have state-of-the-art indoor practice facilities? Or do you want to make sure that you've got a roster that can compete? And he basically is like, we had this money earmarked for an indoor practice facility. We had it earmarked for improvements to Jim Patterson. We made the decision once, especially when the 2023 season happened, first year with the full portal, where we just looked bad. Didn't even qualify for the ACC tournament. We made the decision at that point, that money's got to go to player acquisition. It's got to go to killing it in the portal. We had Dan McDonald on this show, and he was like, look, I'm not resistant to change. We recognized after the 23 year that we had to get active in the portal. We had to go get players. And if you're wondering why, Zion Rose, freshman All-American last year, maybe the best freshman in all of college baseball, why he stuck around. Eddie King Jr. could have gone anywhere he wanted, why he stuck around. Why we were able to go out there and bring in some big bats in the portal, sign a big-time freshman like Tag Davis, who's able to come in and set freshman home run records. It's because we're giving money to those players that would have otherwise gone to facility upgrades. Now, ideally, and runs like the one that U of L is on right now can help with this, ideally you get to a point where it's fiscally responsible to do a little bit of both. Player acquisition has to be the biggest thing, but if attendance numbers go up, if Louisville gets the extra money that comes from going to the College World Series, maybe winning a College World Series, then you can say, all right, we've got enough left over in the bank to fund these projects and make sure that we're maintaining championship-level caliber rosters. But as of right now, they're not there. They had to make some hard choices when it came down to this. It's like Rick Pitino, he was talking about this season on his show, where he was like, we've got terrible facilities at St. John's, and those projects, they're going to have to wait because players don't care about that. It's a nice little bonus if you can go to a program and see the KFC Yum Center and be like, man, this place is unreal. But what it comes down to is, how much can you give me to play? What's the overall bag here? That's where the discussion begins. It's where the discussion ends. Everything in between is sort of nice filler. So right now, it makes sense, Roman, to see Louisville baseball. I know McDonald wants all of the upgrades that he feels like he deserves. He definitely does. But when you've got a player roster that has to happen like this, and you've got the fact that he's one of the highest paid coaches in college baseball, that's a big thing too. We're giving him $1.8 million per year. Most programs aren't spending that on a college baseball coach. He's paid way more, almost twice as much as Florida State, a big-time college baseball program, is paying its new head coach, Link Jarrett. Nick Mingione at Kentucky, went to the College World Series last year. He's making about half as much as Dan McDonald is. Hard decisions have to be made when all this is the case, and I think that you would agree. I certainly would agree. I would venture to guess that most of the listeners would agree. If it comes down to facilities and looking pretty or getting rosters out there that can give us moments like we had last weekend winning a Nashville Regional, you go with the players.
100% every day of the week, because you have to bank on paying a coach a little bit more to go get a coach that could go usually probably be an SEC coach and be a top name in a different school that not necessarily is a better brand than Louisville as a school, but maybe the baseball program specifically has had more all-around success all time or something like that, and they can pay him SEC level money like all the SEC baseball coaches. You brought in a coach like that to pay him a little bit more because you know in the ACC to go and compete with what the SEC has been the last 10 years in baseball, you've got to have a little bit better coaching because your roster might not always have from top to bottom the same talent that some of those SEC schools do. If you go and win, Mike, if you go and win, continue to win, get to the Super Regional every single year and do more and go and win a College World Series eventually after you've established yourself as that level of a dominant ACC team and you're getting those recruits in every year, then the money's going to come from winning, right? Then Adidas might allocate more money because of what the Louisville brand does for baseball, because of it consistently being a higher power in the baseball atmosphere. So I also think that you